Hip-seated 90-degree pails and rails. This seated hip stretch can be performed at different heights depending on your individual hip mobility. The lower the height of the step, the more mobile the hip will need to be in external rotation. We can also perform this stretch on a bench or a box depending on your mobility. As you can see, one shin is placed over the step and the trailing thigh is allowed to hang off the bench. The knee of the back leg does not need to touch the ground if you are performing this on a high box. The front knee needs to be directly in front of the hip capsule, meaning that the knee is not placed outside hip width. The front knee should be bent to 90 degrees and the shin should be parallel to the hips. Make sure the hips are square to each other and they are square to the front shin. Do not be twisting through the hips. Keep the chest up and the back flat, hinge at the hips and lean the torso forward without rounding the back. You should start to feel a stretch in the outer hip. Hold this passive stretch for 2 minutes while focusing on diaphragmic breathing. After holding the stretch for 2 minutes, we will perform PAILS and rails contractions. To perform the PAILS contraction, we take a deep diaphragmic breath into the belly. We create tension throughout the entire body, so all muscles are contracted. Grip the step with the hands and create tension in the arms and lats, like you would if you were performing a deadlift. Imagine there is a measuring scale under the front shin and you are trying to contract the glute, externally rotate the hip, push the shin down into the scale to see the numbers on the scale increase. Think of externally rotating from the hip capsule while pushing the shin down. Slowly increase this pressure from 50 to 60 to 70 to 80 and potentially all the way up to 100% contraction. We hold this active PAILS contraction for 10 to 15 seconds before performing a rails contraction. To perform the rails contraction, relax the outer hip and now actively try to lift the shin off the step. This is physically impossible, but we're aiming to contract the muscles that would perform this action. We then close the angle between the belly and the shin while keeping the chest up and the back flat, so we're hinging at the hip. We're physically pulling the torso down closer towards the shin. We hold this rails contraction for 10 to 15 seconds. We then repeat the PAILS and rails contraction for 3 rounds. Notice after each round of the PAILS and rails, the torso moves slightly closer to the shin and the range of motion in the hip increases. Remember to breathe while holding the contractions and focus on the external rotation coming from the hip.